Hello, I'm Malcolm Haslett.
And I'm Janice Baker. On our program, we have met some interesting achievers their children who have followed in the business steps of their parents.
And today we're going to meet two more of them, a mother and son who've also had a career with an organisation called Mostly Kids, and that's next.
On our time.
Thank you for saying that. And they said my voice would eventually come back. I'm going to do those voiceovers for all those scary movies.
That's about all you can do at the moment.
Well, the makeup girl said that's what I sound like. Could I have a career in that?
But you've had a career in modelling. Did you?
I did when I was very young.
A few years ago?
Only last week, really. And we've just been talking before we started to come to air with our next two guests, who are
Liz Philippou and her son, Adam.
Hello.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Elizabeth.
Oh, no, Liz is fine.
Liz, thank you.
You've always been a Liz to me.
It's a name that was just... Phyllis Southgate from David Jones, she just said Liz is fine, so I stayed with Liz. I was Elizabeth for quite some time. It just seemed appropriate.
Yes, well, we're going to talk about some stores that all of us have been involved with, which is interesting because Myer, in its heyday, was one of the places to be in fashion, wasn't it, Liz?
It certainly was. I have to say, I left school quite early and I worked for a...
I used to leave about 3:30 as well.
I used to work... my dad bought a piece of land and built a house in O'Connell Street, North Adelaide, and sprawled all around him was Rick Hosking Motors. And Rick Hosking offered me a job after school, and then I met his wife, who knew Pam Ellis very well, and eventually, by the time I turned 16, I had done a modelling course through Pam Ellis because of Rick Hosking's wife, who is actually Bobby Lim's sister. It just goes like this, doesn't it? And I graduated, and I wore the most beautiful clothes at my graduation because my mother and her best friend were dressmakers, and I just looked fabulous. I was describing it to somebody the other day. And when I stepped off the catwalk that night, I got a professional diploma, which meant, you know, I could get off and do stuff. And Adelaide at that time had the opportunity to offer people work. It's a lot tougher now. And the first thing I did was jump into Myer. I met Phil Skinner, and she allocated me Fashion Mobile Staff number 9, which meant I didn't belong to any particular department. I belonged to the store. Nobody wanted to pay me because in those days the department had to work their own budgets and whatever.
Yes, of course.
So I was Fashion Mobile Staff. So at 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, I would disappear, which was the busiest time, and I'd be on the catwalk with the likes of Fran Shearman, Tony Cameron, and it was just an amazing time. And you.
And me.
And you and Jenny.
And fresh out of school.
For those of you watching in the other states, the names that we're dropping here were so iconic here in South Australia that if you didn't know these people, you weren't in the business.
That's right.
That's true, isn't it?
And, you know, Malcolm, it was an absolutely fabulous time. I came from a European background and I was, you know, the good little girl. My father didn't want me to be in modelling. He didn't think that was the right thing to do because his perception of modelling was basically tits and bums. That's what he thought modelling was. And it gave me great pleasure, and my mother great pleasure, to drag him to actually see that I was wearing long osties and I was wearing, you know, all those clothes.
Beautiful gowns.
Really gorgeous.
Yeah, of course.
It would have been fun to have called him back, like, where have you been then, watching these models?
What gave you that idea?
I remember when rolling forward in time a bit, when I opened up the modelling agency, he realised that it was all, you know, it was all good and legitimate and it was all beautiful, and he was really proud of me and what I've achieved.
I know this all happened before you, Adam. We're talking about BA.
Yes.
But having a mum as you're a high fashion model. Having a mum in that position, how did it affect you as a child?
I loved going to see my mum up on the stage. I can remember going to parades and hearing the compare. I think what would happen is because I wasn't at school at that time and I was quite young, and I would be, Mum would be doing parade somewhere on one of the floors. I would be sat out the front watching the show, and then I'd be gone. And I was like Paddington Bear. Mum would tell me, if lost, please return to like the fourth floor of David Jones' department.
We could do that, though. We could do that. But can I interrupt? Because I do want to bring something to the attention. The parades at David Jones, I'm just jumping a bit, because I had children, I had a bit of time off, and then when I came back, I became a proper model, not a house model.
Yes.
And I worked with David Jones, and I would have parades at 12:10, 12:30, 1:10, 1:30, and then we'd have time for a coffee at Cappies.
Lane.
Yes, between Maya and David
Yes.
Jones. A strong coffee, really strong coffee,
Yes.
and then I'd come out of the car park, and by the time I hit King William Street, I was like this, and I didn't know I was allergic to caffeine at the time.
Oh, no.
I was going like this to pick up the kids from school, and all the makeup, and I would dress well because at that time we were our business. You know, we couldn't afford to run around in tacky pants, and we always looked immaculate.
Activewear.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
really
Always-
looked immaculate. And we had these huge bags that had everything from
Everything.
G-strings to all the different shoes
4 or
to...
5 pairs of shoes,
Is
jewellery,
Everywhere.
scarves.
That's why now I've got one hip higher than the other, because I'm used to running up and down
the
Rundle
bag.
Mall with the bag. And I would go straight to the primary school and walk across the oval, and my sons would say to me, "Don't come and pick us up dressed like that."
Yeah, I wouldn't have. It wouldn't have been me.
Didn't like it. They didn't like their mum didn't look like the other mums
You
there.
weren't wearing just the G-string at the time.
Oh, no. We
But I
didn't.
just wondered, is that why you became a musician?
Well, no, why did I? It had nothing to do with that. That's for sure. No, look, I have great memories of Mum modelling, and I guess that always, I don't know, just seeing someone that you knew, like your mother, on stage, just always, I don't know, it always seemed accessible to me because of that. And I can remember Mum doing the Woolboard parades, which was the big thing.
Were the
Okay, Elders Parades at the Royal Show
They
was
were
the big thing,
fabulous.
and you weren't a model unless you'd done the Woolboards.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether I was lucky enough or unlucky enough. Phyllis called us in, and they needed some models / stagehands, right? And they weren't really going to be models; they're going to be stagehands, okay? And I didn't fit the part. And especially the silhouette they wanted to do. They wanted this sort of, this Dreamtime sort of scape, and I just didn't fit the part. But then, and so my brothers
two
were giving me,
brothers did.
my brothers gave me a lot of stick about that, because they both got it, and they were in Adelaide, and they were helping move sets out on the stage and things like that. And I haven't got a problem with the hard work. But 2 years passed, and I started modelling, and I knew I had huge shoes to fill because of what my mother
weren't
had
wearing
done.
your
always-
mother's shoes.
Yes, I know, not today.
nice.
Well, these are 13, so I'm doing all right. I'm going to stretch them.
I have to say, he always says that to me. I've got huge shoes to fill.
It was really important, and I knew that if I wanted to do something even maybe just an ounce of what Mum had done, I know that I had to impress Tanya Powell, because she booked me. She said, "Look, if you're anything like your mother, I love you. You walk great, you move all right. Okay, we'll get you up on stage." So I knew I had to be the first dressed. I had to be out at the front, ready to go all the time, smiling because of her shoes, right? And just you've got to keep the show going. And because of that, I sort of etched out my own name for myself, and I was getting a lot of gigs. And then come and audition for the Woolboard parades, and I got it. And it was amazing, because they actually took me to Perth as well. So I said, to my
Hobart?
brother, no, I didn't do Hobart. I did Adelaide and Perth, and I'm like, yeah, I've done it now. I'm following in Mum's footsteps. And then Phyllis is telling me stories about my mother, and I'm like, oh, that's fine, Phyllis.
She's my mum. Hey, let's have a look at some of the pictures of you when you were doing this sort of work. Look at you there.
There's your comp card, Liz.
Wow.
Now, I can't remember who the photographer was, but he was very well known then. Oh, this is Diana Bonathan's.
Don Mellor was the photographer.
Yeah, he was.
Don't you love this look?
I know.
Bring it back, that's what I say.
So pretty.
Casual walking to the shops.
Now, this
This
is
was-
hold this shot for a tick, because
Adriana had died, and we weren't in Sydney, and all of our... See, there's Joni McGuinness and, I can see lots of girls there.
Penny August,
Penny
I can see.
and...
Rosemary McLeod.
Rosemary, yeah, well done. And there's Penny and Sal Tropiano and Rice, what's her name?
Evelyn?
And yeah, we're all there, and we just had a bit of a get-together to just commemorate her passing.
Adriana Xenides, who we're talking about, who was so famous throughout Australia on Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune, that's right.
So sad to miss her, actually. Lovely, lovely girl. I'd worked with her quite a bit too. So what happened to you? How long is a model's life, do you feel?
Well, it depends on your... how you present yourself. And I know that sounds pretty sort of here or there, but at about the age of about 30, I had already had my family by the time I was 26, so I wasn't going to take any time off for having children. And that's when everybody else was starting to have children.
Yeah.
So I was on a good streak there, but what I decided when I hit 30, that I could see that this was not going to be a career that was going to last forever. And when I say that, I mean catwalk and all that stuff.
Yes.
I started to look around to see what I had to do, and I was asked to start lecturing at one of the agencies. And I thought, well, what can I teach? I don't really know. I just do my work.
Yes.
And you know what? I could teach a lot. You don't know what you've got in you until you actually are asked to talk. And the other thing that I found fascinating was the first group of people that I taught were Aboriginal girls from Central Australia. And I loved my work. These were girls that could not look at themselves in the mirror. That's how hard it was for them to get anything for me to get anything from them. And to see them evolve and get on the catwalk with my training, I really loved it. Absolutely loved it.
You gave them their confidence.
You did. There's so much more story to tell about both of you.
Yes.
We'll take a break and we'll be back in a moment.
Here we are. We're back.
We are.
With mother and son.
And we've talked a little bit about Mum. Let's talk about you, Adam. Now, you did the modelling stuff, but then what else happened in your life?
So I found out in about grade 7 I had a voice.
No.
I didn't know. They had this festival music chorus that they used to do, and I think they still do it now, where they have a whole bunch of primary schools and they go to the festival theatre.
Yes.
And you know, there's about 12 or so schools on each night, and they run it for a month or so. And there was this song called "Rise Up, Shepherd," and it was some old.
Christmas
Carol. Yeah, Christmas Carol, that's right. And anyway, I just went in, would you like to audition for it? And I thought, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I was a bit of a loner at school. I guess I was, didn't have many friends, so I was, kept to myself. And then very shy. And I came out and did this song. Everyone was blown away. They thought, who's this kid with a voice?
Did this come
and I'd just come to the school, maybe the first year or so. And I remember going to an excursion, and the conductor that was there, because I was sitting at the front of at the Scotch Theatre, he turned around and said, "You're Adam, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Has your music teacher told you?" And I said, "Told me what?" And she said, "Go and ask." So I went up to Mrs. Grove, and she said, "Yeah, you've been selected for the part." And so it just snowballed from there. I was so nervous.
So you did a solo?
I did a solo. That was my first thing, maybe 10, 11 years old, at the Festival Theatre.
How wonderful.
And there was this lady next to me that was playing the flute, okay, and I was shaking like my legs were like jelly, and I remember it was terrible. My voice was all vibrato, and then suck it in, hold it up. Anyway, they told me afterwards that she couldn't see. The girl next to me was blind, and I didn't know for the life of me.
So
I could have kept shaking. She would have just, and I stuffed up the verse. I think I sang the first verse twice.
Oh, I've done that.
But those things happen.
You used to sing too.
Oh yes, yeah.
And exactly, the nerves that get the better of you, and
I can
all
tell
those
you
lyrics.
A story.
And then,
singing at the Festival Theatre, doing a concert, and it was full. all I could see with the front row, and they were nuns. And I'm thinking, yes, thank you. And I told the story. After the first song, I said, oh, so relieved. All I could see is the front row, and somebody turned all the lights on. It was just like, and then it was like, oh, my God, I've still got like 6 songs to sing. How am I going to get through this? So
No,
I know how you felt.
I get that. I've performed at... I won't jump there. So then my brothers and I got together. We had... there was an avenue. We met this Glaswegian. He sounded like Billy Connolly. He looked like Billy Connolly. He told me he knew Billy Connolly, right? And we thought he was just a fibber, right? Finbar is what we used to call him, and he hates that. So I'm sorry if you're listening, Alan. And he said, yeah, I got this guy in Glasgow, right? We'll get you a record deal and it'll be like, you'll be done. So we left 95, September 95. I thought we were going to come back by December and have Christmas here that same year. It took us about 8 months to sign a recording contract in London.
Wow.
And we started recording. London Records signed us, and they had the likes of Bananarama, Fine Young Cannibals, groups like that, E17. So that was we were in the same sort of pop bag as E17. And we had a song, we had one song, and the guys said, well, look, let's throw you out on tour. So they dropped about £20,000 to pay to go on tour with E17. And we did one song, and it was just a whole new world for us.
Wow.
There was George Michael and I.
Photos.
Yes,
Of you guys.
yes.
Let's have a look.
So yeah, that's actually Michael on the left, me in the middle, and George on the right, my older brother. We were Universal, and we were 3 brothers with a song and a dance. Basically, that was it. You know,
Look at you.
this is us at doing some autographs. We actually came back from Los Angeles, very tired, jet-lagged, doing our music video, our first music video, and I think we were on tour here with Peter Andre, and that's at the Birmingham
wow.
Entertainment Centre. We thought we were on top of the world. So we had this huge, massive radio gig in Clapham, I think it was, Clapham Common, and then the record company director wanted us to perform at his wedding, and in between that, we were still on tour. So from Clapham to Birmingham, and then Birmingham to his place in Hertfordshire, and it was just a great night. And we thought, like, this is...
Helicopters.
Helicopters. That's like, you know, 3 little boys from Adelaide on helicopters flying across England and yet doing all these shows, you know? We thought we were on top of the world. That's in the Mojave Desert in Los Angeles. That's the opening scene of Rock Me Good. That was fun times. Lots of fun times.
It's just great seeing those shots, isn't it?
It is. I was actually looking at other footage, putting this together, and I was just sitting there going, we actually did. There was a time in our life when we wanted to put that away and not deal with it, because it was very poppy, and we wanted to move away from that. Because my older brother and I, we come from playing pubs and clubs here in Adelaide, you know, live musicians, upright, and that's what we do, you know, smoking, people drinking, throwing bottles, the whole bit, and then going up and having our crowd was, you know, the demographic was like about 6 to 16, and we were dancing and singing and just having a ball.
Can I just say something? My boys just up and left altogether.
How dare they?
And, well, it was devastating.
Yes.
It was devastating, right? So they go to London, and I haven't seen them in, was it how many?
2 years.
2 years. I've only spoken to them on the phone. So I decided that I will go and visit them and see my boys in 2 years. So I leave Adelaide, go to Perth. It's very hot. It was just...
Was it December?
December. It was very hot. So we go to Perth, catch the flight to London, get into London, not dressed really well because it was really hot in Perth. My suitcases have got lost. And it's 6 o'clock in the morning that we get in and go straight to the hotel. I was expecting to see my boys,
that's right.
but
The
they
record
weren't
company.
allowed to come and see us.
We were in the middle of a tour. We're coming back from, I don't know, Manchester or something to do Wembley.
Someone picks me up, picks us up, takes it to the hotel. Still can't see the boys. I've been given passes to go and see them after 2 years at Wembley. So I'm sitting in, I'm getting ushered in, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God.
No, hang on. You walk through the foyer, because I love this bit. Mum gets handed this bit of merchandise that they're giving away, right? And it's like the 3 of us sitting there, like, you know, all looking coy, and in a suitcase, what was it, in a pencil case, like a giveaway pencil case with some stickers and stuff.
It was just the most amazing experience, guys, I have to tell you. So I sit down, I'm about the 4th row back, and I've got all these young kids all around me, and the boys come up on stage. I'm going, these are my noise. And the girl next door heard, and she goes, I beg your pardon. I said, they're my sons. And of course they're going, that's the mother. And as soon as they finished, I didn't care about a thing. I just jumped out of my seat and just ran wherever the catacombs in the back and found them. But I hadn't seen them for 2 years.
That's a long time.
But it was lovely. It was really, really good.
That's a lovely story.
Yeah, wonderful
because
story.
not everyone has that experience.
No.
Why did you stop doing that?
I don't think it was... Look, after 10 years, I think it was like the three of us, George, Michael and I, my brothers and I, we were...
Someone stole your names.
Yeah, well, that's the best bit about it. Let me introduce George, Michael and Adam. Right? And it's like, and they're waiting for this little Greek guy to come out, and there's two other little Greek guys come out. You know, that was the funny thing. Look, there's lots of reasons. I think that we wanted so much to keep creative control over what we were doing. There was also a factor is that we wanted to go back to where our real roots of music were, which were, you know, sort of real music playing and being, you know, and we were getting older. You know, we weren't like 19 or 20 anymore. We were getting into our late 20s, early 30s, and we wanted the music to just reflect that and be a bit more substance. We started writing. We did loads of writing. We had publishing deals with Universal, and then management left us, and we were basically out on the open. We signed another record deal which was nowhere near as good as the very first one that we did with London Records with Polygram.
Yeah.
But it was an avenue. Yeah. And looking back at it, it's, you know, hindsight, it's a beautiful thing, hindsight, but you know, we could have still been signed today, like now. But the thing is, we actually asked to get out of our recording contract so that we could go and do something. Otherwise, we're just going to sit stagnant in a cupboard.
Yeah, you've got to have a life.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, we've got to take another break.
We will.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
There's more.
There is loads more.
There's more.
So, yes, Adam, after your musical career, so coming back to Adelaide, then what happened? What came after that?
It was funny. My future father-in-law said to me one day, he said, you know, enough of the fantasia, right? Enough of the fantasy, right? You know, if you're going to marry my daughter, get a real job. So there was a few little things, and I knew, like, where else? Come and see Mum.
Yes.
No. I'll explain. I started up Mostly Kids in 1984.
Which is an agency. Which is a modelling agency. And a teaching
an academy and an agency.
For children.
Yes.
Obviously.
1984, these kids were all young. And I was a single mother, and it was a great way to earn, like, that was our living. So these kids went off, they became educated, they went and did their experience in London, whatever, and then they all came back. And they slotted into the agency. George was a photographer at the time, the eldest one, and now Adam is managing he owns the business now. We specialise in casting for TV commercials, catalogues, parades, parts in movies, voiceovers, stage productions, and we also have the academy, which is the school where we teach kids deportment, dress sense,
you know, they give them
fashion accessorising, makeup application. We've even chatted to the makeup artist here, see if she wants some work. Oh, right. So it all kind of
From what age, though? What age do you
Newborn.
take?
So newborn to 17, and people go, oh no, newborn. What do you mean newborn? People call me up and say, look, you know, it's a bit late. They're 3 months old. I'm like, no, I had to cast for Deadline Gallipoli. They needed to find a 2-week-old, a 2-day-old. But Mum's got a great memory. She's like, oh yeah, I remember the lady that came in that was pregnant. See if she's had her baby.
Yes.
You know, I ring them up because I get a call from Angela Heatham, who you've had on here with a daughter, and Angela says, look, I need to find this woman. Can you do it? And I called her up and I said, look, can you be bothered? I rang up. I said, look, I need to find a newborn. She goes, oh, that's great. 2 days ago, we just had a little baby girl.
We're checking out of
we're
hospital.
leaving the Calvary now. I said, look, and I know this is a big ask, do you feel like going to see Angela, right? Angela Heatham. And they go, yeah, you just let us go home and have a shower. And I'm like, what? So, you know, my wife didn't want to see anybody for weeks after that.
No.
But no, she was keen. Anyway, she got the part of the film and the baby did as well. It didn't make the final cut. It all made it on the cutting room floor, but it was a fantastic experience for her.
The thing with both of you is that there's just so many stories to tell, including what you're about to do, which is mind-blowing.
Done, by the way.
Done?
Done.
Just
She's
done.
But don't say anything in the
No.
secret.
No, I
We'll
won't.
come back.
You have to come back.
Yes, I will.
Look, it's been fantastic having
Oh, is
you
it all
both.
over, is it?
I know.
Oh, I've
it's
got
like-
so much to tell you.
Can't we just run into the next show?
No, not now.
No.
Because we have to go. Keep yourself nice till next time we see you.
Take care.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.